Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my review of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Okay, so this is my final review. Geez, it might be my final review forever, who knows. I've had enough, I give up. You win. You finally got me off the fence. I'm not going to say I'm going to be a foot soldier for the culture war or anything like that, but if you poke and push a normie enough, eventually they're going to say no. Let me just, that's a bit spicy. I know I've probably got a thumbnail and title that gives it away. Yeah, I'm not very happy with what's happened with this game and what it sort of means for the industry, and I'm having a bit of a crisis point. I'll address, I did do a review in progress the first 2 hours. I was quite positive on this game. A lot of that still kind of stands. The gameplay loop at its core is not bad. It's fairly solid. But once you start ramping more enemies, the upgrade tree is kind of throwaway. The loot system's kind of throwaway. It's got all the rarities and all that, but you never use greens and blues past the first hour. And then you realize that it doesn't even matter. You get quest rewards when you finish missions, and you just equip whatever you get given and go on. Like, the crafting system is so low impact, it doesn't really matter. And the talent system's more like a Vermintide or something. Pick one of 3. Doesn't really affect how you play. So yeah, the bouncing around mobility loop is still pretty cool. Then they start adding on all these extra enemies that I don't even want to get into it, but they're less complementary to the loop and more antagonistic. A good example is these flash-powered snipers. They zip around and that. The game has trained you to aerial attack onto things and brawl and punch and juggle, and it's moderately close combat. And then there's all these snipers that if you even go near them, they just teleport away, and you're sort of forced to counter them at range, and it's kind of unpleasant. It leans into the weakest part of the loop, and that's just one example. And by the end of it, they're piling so many of these characters on and so much crap on your screen that it becomes unpleasant to play. It's a very difficult thing to tangibly explain, but what this game feels like it should have been actually a character action game with no loot, no talents or anything like that. Just rely on the loop, and then maybe they would have spent more time designing kind of better antagonistic components. The boss fights as well, they're designed in such a way that it doesn't really complement the loop, and the spectacle of them is kind of cool, but the actual in practice, by the time I'm fighting bloody Superman at the end, it was kind of like pulling teeth. I've been playing for 12 hours and you've told me to upgrade my loot and build out my talents and make a build and all that, and now you're going to put me through a boss fight. There's only one way to fight it, and it's not like any of the builds. So what do you want me to tell you, man? So look, that's out of the way. I'm not really walking back on any of that. The humor and all that's still really good. I do wonder, though, how much of it is character-driven. Standouts are the Shark and the Aussie dude interacting with each other. They have a little bit of a bromance. Deadshot is so obviously the golden child of the writing staff in this. It's just not even funny. He's boring, bland, pedestrian. He has stress attacks, and his entire personality is, I have a daughter. It's so one-dimensional, but they lay it on so thick. You can actually see the hand of whoever's directing the writers really grabbing the reins on that. Whereas something like the Captain Boomerang dude, I almost guarantee 90% of his stuff is ad-lib creative insert from the voice act. There's too many Australianisms for any American to actually get and understand, and the delivery is organic. I really think they just let this cunt go nuts in the voice acting booth, and he just came up with bangers. So he's the strongest part of the entire game, but that's not something that can be manufactured. So it is fascinating seeing what I really honestly think is VA directed versus, Deadshot, and to a lesser degree Harley Quinn being the centerpieces of kind of agendered writing. Let's get to that, by the way. It's one thing for a game to just be overtly propagandistic and bad. Like, that's throw that in the bin, whatever. Problem is that there's a real lot of good work that's gone into this. I'm not trying to validate the work product, but I'm more talking about there's an evolution of this culture war that's going on, and it does seem to be taking place in the AAA gaming space. This is not quite there, but this is foreshadowing. We're going to start getting really good games, I think. Like, really good games. But they're going to be riddled with these messages, and the time's going to come. you're gonna have to ask yourself, do you have a line? Like, I'm not trying to rally people. I'm not activist or anything like that. I'm just a bloody normie. I've tried to sit on the bench and stay out of this crap for as long as possible. As far as I'm concerned, you come to my channel, I don't care where you are on the political spectrum or what your personal beliefs are. The handshake agreement is keep that shit to yourself and let's enjoy a video game. It's escapism, and we should be able to enjoy the hobby together. But then when you start inserting malicious, deconstructionist behavior into these games and these narratives, and it just wears me down, man. It wears me down. If you're trying to make an enemy out of me, you're doing a great job. And look, you might be going, Scarlett, you're being a bit pearl clutchy, right? Being a bit dramatic. But I in honest good faith, I counter and say, do you truly, like, have you ever actually sat down and thought to yourself, do I have a moral framework? And that's not supposed to be an attack. Because when it came to games, until now, I didn't particularly. I like the idea of the pursuit of the game. I fancied myself potentially a chronicler of games, trying to stay fairly personally out of it and, live through these decades of gaming and observe and consume and let people figure it out for themselves. But in that, there's no real moral framework. There's no enough is enough. There's no line that can't be crossed. And I ask you, think about it. Do you have one of those? Do you think that maybe you should? Should there be a point where a game crosses a line? And no matter how good it is, it doesn't matter. It's not compatible with you, with what you think gaming should be. Food for thought. This game crosses it for me. Two categories I want to cover off on, right? One is kind of overt poking at people and being antagonistic. And then the other is more in the intangible, the moral, the iconoclasm that you see in a lot of modern writing. So look, let me just give you some examples. We touched on the gay trans flag in the first video. The thing is, I don't really care, whatever. I think it's a bit weird that there's this flag that people kind of rally around. It's a bit strange. I'm ex-military, you gotta understand. I'm ex-Navy. I've served with, and not to get too much of a downer, I've had dudes die, in my service, under the white ensign. If you handled flags at parade and you ever let them touch the quarterdeck, which is the ground, right? If you let the flag touch the ground, you would lose your fucking weekend. It's very important. There's a national pride, a military pride. But look, all glory to you if you like it, regardless of whether you're gay or not. I don't care. Surely if you feel as strongly for your flag as I feel about mine, surely you will take issue with what I'm explaining now. I'll put up some B-roll. This flag is being hung in a position where you cannot get around it. There's no fast travel yet. The game doesn't give you fast travel to headquarters until 7 hours in. You have to walk in and out of this one hallway to headquarters to do your missions and all that. And after I did it for the 20th time, it's obviously very apparent. You come around the corner, you are elevated so that it's right in eyesight, and then you go downstairs as well. This is clearly environmentally designed to poke people in the eye, to make people, success, to make people make videos about it, right? To drive controversy. None of this has anything to do with being gay. And I would be so tragically upset that this important icon, if I want to humor that argument, is being used as essentially, for lack of a better term, a weapon. It is being used to upset people. Now, Scarlett, you might be reading a bit into this. Well, consider that they also address, and by address in the same eye-poking kind of way, why isn't Deadshot white? He's supposed to be white. That's what I understand from comics. They have banter about it. It's the only time they break the fourth wall. Aren't you supposed to be white? Isn't Deadshot white? Right? And then they move on. They leave it there. Why is it there? It's not there to address it. It's there to antagonize people, to fire them up. So that's great. Let's use the other hot button topic, race, just as a weapon to try and poke people. Oh, you can't forget the other time as well, where Justice League beats the shit out of Batman. Spoilers, I guess. And they're going to carry him home to base, and Harley Quinn's like, no, I'm going to carry him all on my own over her shoulder. And it looks dumb, and it's unwieldy, And they're like, do you want help? She's like, no, I can do this on my own. It's just silly. But it's not silly humor. When you tie it together with those examples that I've given, there's plenty of other ones as well, but they're the ones just off the top of my head, right? On all the hot buttons, how do you not see malice in the design staff's direction and intent when they take every controversial thing they can possibly think of against who they consider the enemy, which honestly are just people that would want to just play a good video game, and they poke them in the eye with this stuff? I don't think you're going to get the result you want. You're going to get people like me who are generally kind of agnostic on all of these topics. I just stay out of them. I don't have a side. I don't care. I just want to play a game. But now you're just pushing me over to the other side because the other side's not beating the shit out of me with this antagonistic stuff in a product that I paid money for. I did buy this, and then I just want to have fun. I am the finger on the pulse of just normal, boring people, and you're attacking us, and we don't like it. So anyway, there's some overt examples of ill intent, to put it lightly, of the general design direction of this. The bigger thing is, and I touched on it with the moral component, you should have a moral line. You should have a thing where, like, you should have this conversation with yourself, and it should be important. What if it's the best game ever made? Let's create a hypothetical. What if it's functionally the best game ever made, but morally it does not sit right with you? What do you do then? Do you still praise it for its merits? Do you blacklist it? Do you roll over? Do you allow yourself to move your moral line? I think these are important questions that normal people like me, I told you I was going for it, need to start asking ourselves. Because this is not stopping, and this game is kind of important in a way because it shows you how it's going to escalate. This isn't going to stop. The games are going to get better, they're going to get higher production, and they're going to get more focus-tested, shifty in trying to essentially antagonize and attack people that they don't like, that they don't feel like are on their team. An antagonistic through line intentionally cooked into the product. But, what if you make a game about snuff films that's just really awful and in bad taste, but it's got the most addicting vampire survivors bloody loop? What if they go after your favorite hero? Are they going to deconstruct Kobe or Michael Jordan? We're going to spend a game tearing apart every part of that dude's character, are we? What about religion? What about Jesus? What about Islam? Where does it stop? So yeah, look, this seems really heavy. It kind of is. I didn't want it to be, but here we are. Modern writing and the idea that deconstructionism, iconoclasm, which, being an iconoclast, tearing down symbols, statues, burning books, revisionist history, this destructive bullshit parading as creative endeavor. And it's not just about killing the Justice League. It's very clear. At a distance, you might think it's that. And if it was all that, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But every fiber of this game is about, rooting out where bloody finding all of Batman's caves, outing him, humiliating them at every turn, cutting off Flash's fingers, right? This has all gone on a whiteboard as story direction to deconstruct everything they can about what is actually, and I'm not a comic person, but what is something very important to Western culture. It is modern fables. Even I, as just a normie from a distance, can recognize the sort of importance of black and white morality to teach to your children. Spider-Man's still such a big hit because, teens can relate to him and all that, but the whole idea, honestly, it is a modern fable. These guys always win because they should always win, because their intention is good. The bad guys aren't necessarily supposed to be humanized, not in this framework, not from the perspective of a modern fable. Are we going to deconstruct the scorpion and the frog? Why? Why would you do that? To say that you did? To say that it was a creative endeavor so it was worth merit? No. These are the same people that tell you that a bucket with sand leaking out a hole in the bottom in an art museum is valid art. No. At a certain point, you call it for what it is. This entire project has been constructed to very meticulously and maliciously pull apart every fiber of something that is kind of supposed to be, in our culture, sacrosanct. I'm not saying you have to worship Superman and the superheroes, but you should at least recognize that maybe this is a line crossed and a bridge too far. Scarlet, you pearl clutching, maybe I am, right? But your line will come too, and I think that's the important takeaway in all of this. You might not agree with me here, but see what I'm tracking and putting on the table. These games, these people making these games with ill intent and a destructionist, malicious, iconoclastic streak are only gonna make more games of higher production, and maybe you will get to that day where you have to ask yourself, this is the greatest game I've ever played, and yet it is morally reprehensible. And I do not envy that day, but it's coming, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to go through it. I'm not doing this. Anyway, look, very heavy stuff that I've tried to avoid on the channel. What does this mean now going forward? Well, it means I don't really like the Suicide Squad game, that's for sure. But look, I don't know, and I'm open to feedback. I'm not really interested in just making clickbait negative culture war videos. But at the same time, I don't want to carry water for these companies. I didn't get a review key for this time, but I get a lot of keys from a lot of games. And if I'm going to speak my mind like this, which isn't to say I was necessarily bottling things, but I wasn't going hell for leather either. But I'm honestly being set on a collision course now where I'm going to get blacklisted from everything. I don't mind. That doesn't really faze me, but it might change what happens with the channel. Maybe it's as simple as we just go back to Let's Plays. They're not working like they used to. Boo-hoo, poor me. I mean, I do work a main job these days. I kind of got bored just doing YouTube full-time, if we're being honest. So I'll be fine. It's not a big deal. But maybe I just fade away to be an ultra niche channel for the rest of my days doing Frostpunk playthroughs. I'm open to criticism. If I sound deflated, defeated, and if this isn't the video you were looking for and you're part of my regular audience and you're sad to see this come to pass, brother, I'm with you there as well. But I had a bit of a transformative moment playing this game, not in a good way, and who knows? I actually wonder, and I think this is beyond the pale for many, but we might see a mass exodus from gaming in the next decade. People might just stop playing. Or at the very least, they'll just play Tarkov. I play Hell Let Loose almost every day. People might just stop buying games. They'll just play the game that doesn't treat them like shit. The more I think about it now, not to get sidetracked, but there might be a bubble coming. We might actually be in a gaming bubble and it's going to pop. Because there's no way I'm the only person that feels like this. And I honestly think I sit in that space where I've tried so hard to stay on the bench, but enough is enough. Anyway, look, this is obviously quite a bit of a waffle. Might as well put a pin in it there because otherwise I'm just going to keep going around in circles. God, I need to go have a sit down. Team, I might just leave it there for the time being and I'll catch you guys on the next one.